Oh, yeah, this doesn't change. I forgot. Hi.
Hello.
So we're kind of going back to our roots in this deal. When we first started Wednesday nights, kind of in the structure, or started back Wednesday nights after the pandemic, we started it out by it just being me and Chelsea and another guy in this room, and we started doing living room talks. And so it was just a very different format, but it was on Wednesdays, and it was us talking into microphones, and we couldn't actually hear ourselves. TJ had headphones in, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're good," but it was like on a 12-second delay. So it was like, well, we're gonna wait 12 seconds to figure out if we're loud enough. So if you're watching online, tell us if we're loud or not. Probably not loud enough. Anyway, so you remember last week we talked about the book of Joshua. It's kind of exciting. Gave you no answers, just a whole bunch of questions, which is a lot of fun. Um, and as we interact with the whole narrative of Joshua and the conquest literature, and we wrestle with clearly God's intention of including that in Scripture, there's no way it can be about, well, these people all died, right? Like there's no way. There's going to be a person from off screen if you're watching online. There's a person from off screen going to be talking randomly into a microphone. Can you say hi, Chelsea?
Hi, Chelsea.
Oh, there she is. Yeah. So you can't see her because she's back there, but there is some interaction that we need to have. And so, what did we decide last week was actually God's intention of the book of Joshua? Did it actually happen?
You're asking me
Yes,
specifically.
I'm asking
not
you.
the people sitting in front.
Correct.
Oh boy. I don't know. Yes. Yes.
I mean, yeah, okay. Conquest literature is like, surely there's some truth to it. It's
Well,
just
right, but what you talked about last week was like
correct. Yes.
That's what I
so
started
the
to say.
so the yeah, the conqueror, the
that's
people
what
who
we s-
won, they write the thing. What were you saying? Go ahead.
I was saying that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it's fine. You go.
Yes, that's exactly it. The winner writes the story in the end. And so, did it actually happen exactly how it said it did? Probably not. Yeah, definitely. Um, there's a quote from The Hobbit. I really like The Hobbit in the Lord of the Rings series, and he's telling the story. And who is it? It's Gandalf. He says, "Every good tale deserves a little embellishment," and so that's you write a story about about what happened and have a few embellishments after you survive whatever crazy happening happened. So anyway, did you have another question? Are you sure? Potentially, just depends on like what you believe in. Like different historians would say, and we're going to kind of get into a little bit of that because different historians will say that the size of Jericho's walls are they're they're debated, the actual thickness of the walls, and we're going to talk about how we get to that number. Okay, so however the conquest happened, because when you read the book of Judges, it kind of gives an inclination that okay, well, it still happened, but maybe not quite exactly how the book of Joshua says it happened. Anyway, um, it's really about God's judgment on a specific group of people, the Amorites, who would be known as the Amorites, and the Ze'ekah, the crying out, and we wrestled with this tension, right, between how many Ze'ekahs, how many cries does it take before God acts, and then when God does act, how swiftly and and thoroughly he acts, then it becomes like, okay, well, I mean, I wanted you to do something, but that's a little excessive, maybe. But how long was it going on? Do you remember, Chelsea, how long it was going on? When did he talk about the Amorites with Abram, right? Yeah, like 440, 450 years. He said that he made the statement to um, Avram. Remember, if we look back at Genesis, when we talked about the blood path, this statement was made from God to him about the iniquity of the Amorites. So let's take a snapshot of what. Can you pull up that first slide, Chelsea? Let's take a snapshot of what the ancient biblical world. This would have been the entirety of the known world at the time. In biblical history, this would have been the known world. So this little green piece right here is what becomes known as Israel. And you've got this Sinai Peninsula and the nation of Egypt. Got Greece and Rome going to be developed over here. This would be considered. This is modern day Turkey, which this would be considered Asia in this area. And then the Assyrian, Persian, Babylonian empires are all going to be over here to the east. Everything down in this direction to the south and east is the Arabian Peninsula. It is Midbar. It is all desert. This would be nothingness. And so what we're talking about today is, if it's not about the conquest, if it's not about that victory and the destruction of somebody else, then it has to be about God getting his people into this space. And the question is, why this particular piece of dirt? Why this particular space? Why would God choose this space? And so one of the things that's interesting about that, the established peoples of the world came from the east, and they had these spice trades and these different trades and trade routes. There were like three major roads, and they were all. Do you remember what that was called? Yeah, the word. It's like the Via Maris. Jonas is probably going to tell us. Is it the Via Maris? Yeah, Via Maris. See, I knew he would remember. There was these three major trades, and they were trading from the east. And where were they trading to? Who was the superpower at the time? Egypt. They were making their way to Egypt. And from Egypt, that's where everything else went out. And the only way to get there is through this little bitty piece of land right here.
Through Israel.
Through Israel. What God is establishing is Israel. What would be the land of Canaan before the conquest? There was also this, what was called the Silk Road. And it went from Egypt, and it made its way up into modern day Turkey, into Asia, Asia Minor. And guess where it went through?
Israel.
It went through Israel. It came right down the coast, right through Israel and to Egypt. So this, most people, historians would call this patch of land right here the turnstiles of the modern world. The turnstiles of the world were right here. This was so hotly contested. That's why there were so many people battling. That's why war was their only language, because they were battling over control of this space. Because if you controlled this piece of land, you got a piece of everything. Every type of trade, you got a piece of. This would be the crossroads of the world at the time. This little piece of dirt. And when you go to the second slide, here's why it's important. Because this is the establishment, that little green patch that we just looked at, this is it. And this is what God did. God was bringing his people into this space to establish them. And is there anything significant about why would God want his people at the crossroads of the earth at the time? So he was bringing salvation for all people, and we're going to hear about that in the New Testament. When we think back to Torah, Chelsea, what was the conversation that God had with Avram? What was the conversation? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
He made a promise to him that he was going to do what?
Oh, multiply?
He was going to bless him, right?
Bless him and multiply his, yeah.
And because of him, who was going to be blessed?
All people.
Yeah, all the nations. So how many nations are going to be blessed?
I thought I just said all of them.
All of them.
Right.
So how would you bless all nations? Like, is that still the mission of God?
I would think so.
So if God made a promise to Abram and said he's going to multiply him, his offspring are going to be like the sand on the seashore. Nobody's going to be able to number them. They're going to be a multitude of people. And his intention is that because of him, all nations are going to be blessed?
Correct.
Is that still God's intention?
I haven't heard otherwise.
So we haven't heard anything else. So then, if you're considering these people have no home, they have no place to call their own. They're sojourners. They're wanderers. They are freed slaves, and you're training them to get to know you. Where are you going to put them? What?
Nothing. I just figured out what I couldn't figure out before. That's why I changed the slide. Please move on.
Go ahead. Okay, yeah. So they have no home. They're wanderers. Where do you put them? If their intention is that all nations are going to be blessed because of them.
Well, right in the middle of everything.
You got to put them right in the middle of everything. And this is why the conquest, this is why post the conquest, this is the division. How many tribes are there? Twibes. How many tribes are there?
Tribes. There are 12 tribes.
12 tribes. There's
actually 13, right?
Yeah, there are 13 tribes.
Yeah.
But what name are we not going to see on this division of the map?
Joseph.
Well, Joseph, yes, but he is kind of here.
Where?
Manasseh and Ephraim.
Oh, those are his kids.
Who's not here? Who has a special assignment different from everybody else?
Benjamin? No, he's there.
Nope.
What's the oldest one?
Nope.
No.
Try again.
Reuben.
Who are the people who take care of the temple?
Oh, Levi.
Levi. There's not going to be Levi here because Levites are in charge of what?
The temple. The
temple. And here's what's really crazy. Will you go back to the first slide real quick?
Yes, after I figure out how to operate stuff. There you go.
Boom, there we go. All right. What did it look like in the Old Testament when God gave them the tabernacle? He gave them the temple. What did it look like?
It was temporary.
It was temporary. Okay, but
I don't know what you're getting.
Where did the tabernacle go?
Everywhere.
How about in the middle?
Okay, thank you, Lindsay.
I think it was.
Oh, I heard her say it. Sorry.
Next door. The middle.
Oh, was that Loretta? Thank you, Loretta.
It went in the middle of the camp.
I didn't know what you were trying to get at. Sorry.
So they went all around. It was right in the middle, and the Levites were close by doing their work, and everybody else, it was smack dab in the middle. God places his people and his permanent tabernacle, the temple, smack dab in the middle of the known world.
Well, isn't that kind of poetic?
so that everybody was just as close to him as anything else. Anyway, moving on to the next one. So we don't see the tribe of Levi here because they're here, about here, kind of where Jerusalem is in this range. But take a good look at where everybody is. This is important. This is kind of the initial where everybody was placed. You've got the people of Edom, the Edomites, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Aramites are over here. As far as the people that border them to the east, but you got the tribe of Reuben, tribe of Gad, um, half the tribe of Manasseh, the other half the tribe of Manasseh, Issachar, Zebulun, Asher, Naphtali, Ephraim, Dan, Benjamin, and Simeon down here. This is the coastal regions, which in reference point for this, they are not huge fans of the water. Why would Israelites? Why would the people of Israel not be big fans of water, Chelsea?
Well, I can imagine when they watched the Egyptians get swallowed up.
Well, the Egyptians gotten swallowed up. That's probably part of it. Part of their heritage, though, is that the water represents like tumultuous times and a lot of chaos. It's unpredictable. So they get that. But where did they come from? They're desert people.
Yeah.
They what? Ur of the Chaldees. Yeah, they're desert people. You ever met a desert person who's like, you know what? I love water. Give
I've
me
never met a
lots and
desert
lots of
person.
water. Huh?
I've never met a desert
Never
person.
met a desert person. Oh. So they're not huge fans of water. That's not where they find safety. They want a little bit of distance between them and the water. But this is kind of the layout. This is how God's design of everything was. And so what are they going to do here? Now that they've conquered someone, now that they've conquered a people, what are they going to do? Most often in the ancient world, what happened was a city was built first. Like it was built and it was strategically located. Wouldn't you think? Wait, I'm skipping ahead. The topography of what this looks like. That's what's next, yes?
I don't know. The picture's so tiny, I can't tell. Do you want me to go to it?
Yes. That was good. This looks exactly like... There we go. Okay. This is the topography, the breakdown of what it looked like. This, what's called the Rift Valley, is the Jordan Valley. That's the Jordan River. You've got the Galilean region up here, up north. You got the coastal plains, which are the lowlands. And then a couple of zones over, you've got the Judah Mountains. This is where, if you're a person of Israel, this is where you want to be. This is where you're comfortable, the Judah Mountains, because it's the high spot. It's the what you've learned. It's very arid, but it is a very safe place. The Judah Wilderness is more of the that's where you get the wadis and the plateaus and the rolling water, because it's all going to roll into this little spot right here, which is, you know what this is? The Dead Sea. Yeah. And in between these things, between the Judah Mountains and the coastal plains, you have the Shephelah. Do you know what Shephelah means, Chelsea? Shephelah literally means the hills bow down, or the mountains bow down. So you have these coastal plains, these low spaces, and the Judah Mountains that are high spaces, and the Shephelah right here is all these rolling hills. It's very fertile soil. It's very good farmland. There's actually, it's still obviously desert and dirty and rocky, but it's the most fertile of the soil that's there. And the Shephelah, literally, it's the bowing down. So for them, the safest place for the people of Israel to be is in the Judah Mountains, like I said. And they saw water as what?
Tumultuous.
Tumultuous. They saw it as unpredictable. They saw it as crazy, even connected to pagan cultures in the area. Matter of fact, in this little area down here, you get this small group of people that we hear about over and over and over again, the Philistines. They're coastal people. And they battle with them for years. And so they see, even in the way that God is dealing with them, they see this as security, safety, and security, and they see this space as 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 a challenge, as a pagan type of place. But the biggest portion of the place that makes up what is Israel, what is home for them now, is this place called the Shephelah, where the people of God are called to come off their mountains and bow down and interact with and engage the pagan culture. And this is a challenging place to be, isn't it?
I know I don't like to interact with things I don't want to interact with.
Yeah.
So I can imagine
Like,
it'd be challenging.
it's so much easier for us to just run to safety, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's so much easier for us to go, okay, this is the safe space. This is the place that we know. This is our Christian school and our Christian culture. This is how we remove ourselves. And I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that. And we're going to talk about this in our time afterwards, in our small group kind of time. But how much, what are the challenges and the hardships to pulling ourselves back into this safe space and not engaging the culture? And what is the challenges and the hardships and the things that we have to be able to overcome to walk into that Shephelah, that place where we're engaging the culture, like literally interacting with the pagan culture, to literally bowing down to.
So it's basically like going on mission.
Yeah, going on mission. This is where they're called to be, and we're going to deal with this even a little bit more later. But there's such a tough spot to be right here, because the people are like, this is really God's call to these people. He's put them here to be what? What was the mission again? What was the mission that Abram was called to? God was going to bless him to.
My mind just went completely blank.
So that all nations would be blessed because of him, right?
Yes. But what was the mission?
That is the mission.
That all peoples would be blessed?
That all peoples would be blessed because of their
Abraham's
interaction
mission?
with Abraham. Huh?
That's Abraham's mission?
That's right.
That feels backwards.
God says, I'm going to bless you so that all people will be blessed because of you. This is still God's call to his people. And so he places them at this crossroads and he says, hey, I'm going to put pagan cultures all the way around you. You're going to be surrounded by pagans that have to walk through your borders. Interestingly enough, if you're building a nation at this time that's known for war, what's the first thing that you're going to do?
If you're building a nation that's known for war?
If you're building a nation in an area that's known for war, what's
fortification? Yeah,
you're going to fortify it. We're gonna set up defenses. We're gonna figure out how to have a sovereign border, and nobody comes in and nobody goes out unless we approve it. Is that the command of God? Is that the does that line up with the law and the instruction that God gave them in the desert? Why are you laughing?
Because you're talking about the mission, and I just thought that Abraham and his family were walking around. Of course, they didn't have cars, they didn't have bumper stickers, but if they did, it would say "blessed to be a blessing." And I just got tickled, and I couldn't stop.
Blessed to be a blessing. This
Blessed
is Abraham's bumper sticker. Yeah.
Okay, I'm over it now. We can move.
Okay,
on.
so
Thank you.
but if you're going to build a city, what's the first thing you do?
If you're gonna build a city,
Yeah, if you're establishing a city, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're
I
going to
don't-
build a wall.
I was gonna say you gotta have your border.
Yeah, you got to build a wall. And where would be the most obvious place to build a city? On a hill. Or right on top of the city you just destroyed.
I mean, that makes sense. It obviously was a good location.
It was. Why was it a good location? Well, there's probably water nearby. And there's probably some good soil, some good things going on. Huh? Utilities already
I
established.
was gonna
We are
say
actually
the
going
same
to
thing, and I was holding my tongue.
we're going to talk about that here in just a minute, but
The pipes were already laid.
the next picture is going to show us this tell. Yeah. This tell is a hill. This is a cross section of a hill.
Tell.
Yeah, you can tell?
Mhm.
Good. It's called a tell. We've color coded it to make it easier to see. This would be the original city that was conquered. Yes, we. I use that term loosely.
Yes, you do.
So, anyway, I'm going to continue on. The blue is the first establishment of a city in this place or town. And when it's conquered and covered over, the next group of people build right on top of those ruins. Why? Real estate.
Location.
Location. Real estate is extremely valuable, especially when your livelihood is based on what? How do you stay alive in the ancient world?
Trade.
You trade and you
Raise livestock.
You raise livestock, you farm, you ranch. Like if you can't produce enough for yourself, you better produce more than enough of something so that you can trade and get what you do need. And in lean times, whenever there's a famine in the land or whenever there's a drought in the land, you better be able to produce enough of something to keep you alive. Because if you can't, then you just end up with an abandoned city that people come into and take over, right? Like you have to be able to figure out how to survive. And over time, what you get is all of these layers and you get these big hills. And you're like, that's not really true. Yes, it is. In the next slide, typer. This is in Turkey, an unexcavated tell. That's not a natural hill. That is what's considered a tell. There are multiple cities underneath.
And then the wind and dirt has just piled over them?
No, when they were conquered, they flattened the city and built a city on top of it. And then the next people...
There's no city now.
There's just no city now.
I know, that's what I'm saying. The dirt just comes over top.
The last group, when they got conquered and covered over, nobody built it back, and it just...
Wow.
BMI. It looks like this guy. Yeah. And so when you did build, is the next one a picture of a city? So when you did take care of building a city after you've conquered somebody else and now you're building back in that same space, now you've got this elevated city that now has a wall around it. And if you're going to build a wall, you got to put a hole in it. Otherwise, you're stuck. Yeah?
Like a doorway?
Yeah, you got to build a doorway.
Okay. That makes
which should be a city gate.
Okay.
And now, what's the primary use of that gate? Control the traffic. It is you got to have access in and out. And now, in these fortified cities like this, originally they would have built the gates to where you could only get about 2 or 3 people through the door at a time. And inside of the city wall, for defense, what do you think they did?
I don't know.
They didn't build another gate. They built rooms.
Is that the next slide?
They built rooms off of that entry. Let's see. Say what? Airport security. They wanted rooms because if you were going to get conquered, if somebody was going to come to fight you, you had to have a way to defend yourself. So what they do, they'd have these gates and these rooms on the side, and you could move troops into it, and you'd have to kill about 2 or 3 people at a time who are trying to make their way through these narrow gates. So at first it was 2 rooms, one on either side. And then they would do 4 rooms. And then 6 rooms, then 8 rooms. Matter of fact, during the reign of David, it would have been a 4-room gate, city gate. We can actually date the city and its construction and its era based on how many rooms were around the gates. It's really, really cool. And so it made it harder and harder. They went from a single story to 2 stories. So you're coming in through the gate, and then there's this opening, and there are 2 rooms that are above you, and now they're like throwing tar and rocks, and like it became a really, really big deal. It became harder and harder. Matter of fact, by the time you get to Solomon, you've got 6 rooms. By the time you get to Hezekiah, you've got 8 rooms. And so what do you see? It gets so hard to conquer these cities through these gates that you got to build siege works and ramps, and you've got to go over the wall that you're already going uphill to get to the city because it's built on top of ruins of other ruins of other ruins. So they've got this built up hill. So you got to go uphill to the city to try to get on top of the wall of the same city because it's so hard. So now you've got all these gates, these rooms built into the gate, and then in the wall they also made these houses, these apartments, like multi-level apartments. And who do you think would be living in the apartments in the wall of the city?
I don't know. I would assume the people.
Like, okay, but what
Probably
class
merchants.
of people?
I don't know.
People of the people. No. Not the rich people.
Why the poor people?
Well, do you want if you're rich, do you want your house to be like, hey, they're coming to invade the city. They're going to get to my house first.
Probably not.
The poorer people, the most poor people are actually going to live outside the city. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. The kind of the common folk, but poorer end of the common folk, they would be living in the walls of the city. And then the closer to the center of the city you get, the closer you get to royalty. And the poorest people are going to live outside the city. In Jewish cities, they have it right here. There's like you see these people. They live in tents outside the city, and there's actually a channel that would run on the edge of the city. They would come through it and come out the side, and they would flush that out twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. It was a sewer. It was just a channel that was dug and was covered by paving stones, and they would force water through it twice a day, and it would come out, and they would push it out into this low spot, and they would light it on fire. It would be smoldering. So just outside the city, it would be, they call it this place of the weeping and gnashing of teeth, because really, really poor people lived there, and it was always smelled like fire and brimstone. It was constantly burning. So this is God's reference to hell, to separation from separation from His presence. Huh?
I said it's pretty crappy.
Yeah, that's a great pun you got there. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But yes, like that's the emblem, the symbol. So what's going on here is this is how they're living. This is how they're going about things. I think I actually have a picture of a ruin.
Oh, hold on. I don't know what happened here.
Yes. So this is a 4. This is how narrow the entryway was.
By the giant goat.
Yeah, the goat. So this is in Turkey. This would be the city gate, and it's got a 4-room city gate. And it looks like it's kind of a 2-level look. So I don't know. It should be pretty close to kind of the time of David, or even a little bit younger. Trying to think of the right way to say that. Anyway, newer, yeah. And so, if you're only fighting about getting conquered about every, 80 to 100 years, then you got to find something else to do with these rooms right inside the gate. So what would happen? Any idea what would happen? What would be a good use for storage of grain? Nope, didn't do that. This is where business would happen. You remember the story of that we're gonna kind of get to, the story of Eli and Samuel. Where was Eli found? He was in the city gate. Where did in the story of Esther, where does Boaz gather everybody together?
At the city gate.
At the city gate. This is where business is being done. This is where they're discussing the happenings of the time. Where does Absalom? Where does he pull people aside and talk with them to reason for them and help them solve their problems so they don't have to go all the way to the king? Where's he?
I'm sure at the city gate.
He's at the city gate. This is what's going on. They're having these conversations. They're having. If you wanted to find your local representative, you didn't have to go try to figure out how to get a hold of them or what's their email or what's their phone number. Go to the city gate. That's where they're going to be, because that's where they're supposed to be. They are helping people solve problems. They are reasoning. If you're looking for a rabbi, if you're looking for a person to help you with judgments, if you're looking for a person to help you with understanding of what's going on, you go to the city gate. That's where it is. That's where stuff's going on. And be a whole lot easier, wouldn't it?
It would definitely be easier.
That would be so much easier. Also, if you were poor and you were destitute and you were in need of help, you went to the city gate, because that's where the people who had more than enough. That city on a hill, if you were poor and you were outside the city, that was your beacon of hope. That was where the provision was. And it's interesting.
Is that what it says in the Bible? A city is set on a hill, cannot be hidden.
That's right, can't be hidden. And God calls his people to something similar, doesn't it? He says, you are...
Where does he say this?
In the New Testament, Jesus says,
Light of the world.
You are a city on a hill.
He says that?
Yes.
Oh.
You are a city on a hill.
Is that what I just said?
Pretty close.
Oh. Does it say it twice?
Jesus told his people, his disciples, and most of them were most of them rich or poor?
Oh, I'm sure poor.
The followers of Jesus, most of them poor. They were looking for help. They were looking for hope. They were looking for a city on a hill. And Jesus says to them, hey, you're going to be a city on a hill. You're going to be a place of hope and provision for somebody else. And they're like, I can barely provide for myself. How's this going to happen? But that's what Jesus called them to be. This is the same call for the people of Israel as they're going through this conquest. He's like, I am setting you up in this space where you can be ignored by no one. You can be ignored by no one at all. I'm establishing you for a purpose. What's that purpose that we're being established for?
To be a blessing.
To be a blessing to all nations. How many nations?
All of them.
All of them. And so He gives them assignments, and their location that they're assigned to is important. Is the next picture also the second picture? Boom. So God, when he gives them their assignment, he's assigning them for a purpose. If somebody's coming to attack, where are they coming from? Like if somebody's coming to try to conquer Israel, where are they probably coming from?
The east.
From the east. So who's going to be there first?
What do you mean?
Who's gonna run into them first? Who's responsible to protect, to be the first line of defense to the east? Ammon is not
Gad.
Gad. Yep.
Reuben.
Gad, Reuben,
Manasseh.
and then half tribe of Manasseh.
Manasseh.
Manasseh. Yes.
Manasseh.
Okay. Now.
Oh, I'm realizing now that I'm saying stuff that's not colorful there on the border. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this.
Now I get it.
These are the foreigners
Got it.
considered for Israel. Now, what about this little group right here? Dan. Where would they be?
On the West Coast, obviously.
Yeah, they're on the West Coast. They're by the water. Do you remember I said something earlier about a group of people that occupied this space right here? They had a big guy. Yeah, the Philistines. Depends on your
encroaching on Judah's property. I don't understand.
Well, it's amazing that they were encroaching on Judah's property. It's like somebody from Judah was a fighter against them. David. So if the Philistines over here are encroaching on Judah's property and they start making their way up and causing problems against this little group of people called Dan, who does Dan call on for help?
Ephraim. Simeon.
Let's try again.
Reuben. Manasseh.
There's a lion. The
Judah?
biggest, most powerful group of people in all of Israel is Judah.
I wasn't thinking because you were saying they were all traveling on through, but why
They're
would Judah
already
let them
here.
through?
The Philistines are here.
I understand. You keep circling it, but
go to the next one. We're gonna look and see where they actually are. See those Philistines?
Oh. Okay.
Now tell me, what's happened here?
They took over the original land given to Dan.
They didn't take it over. They were never run out of there. But Dan did something crazy. Where are they?
They moved way up north.
They went in. They ran away.
Why?
They ran from their calling. They were called to be right here on the front line.
Wow.
Fighting to possess that land. They were called to be on the front line to possess that land. And when these guys kept coming, they got tired of calling on Judah for help. The tribe of Dan, we're going to get into the book of Judges, probably the most famous story of Judges. This one guy. He's from the tribe of Dan. Can you tell me who he is?
I can't hear. All I have is a whirlwind.
He's got long hair.
Samson.
And when he's in trouble, who does he call on for help? Who shows up to come to his aid? Judah. Judah comes to his aid. But somehow, by the time we get through the story of Judges, they got so tired of fighting these Philistines, because how many Philistines did Samson slay with the donkey's jawbone?
1,000? I don't remember.
It's like 3,000.
3,000.
So this is who Samson's fighting his whole life. By the time we get to the back end of the book of Judges, They're not even in the place they're called to be. So much so that you remember we did. Do you remember the study of the book of Revelation we did last fall, Chelsea? Do you remember what tribe is not mentioned in the book of Revelation out of the 12 tribes of Israel?
I'm going to assume it's Dan.
Dan.
I didn't remember, but
They still fight over this piece of ground right here today. Here's what's really crazy about this. Dan ran from their calling and the position they were supposed to hold. They went all the way to the other end. And so when those other when the Persians and the Assyrians, when they come knocking, they come around the Sea of Galilee here and roll in from the north. Who's getting that first? Are they called to be there? Are they supposed to be there? They take such a beating for so long that by the time you get into the New Testament, they don't even exist anymore.
That's crazy.
The tribe of Dan, like this is such a great reminder for us that God has called us to be where He has placed us, even if it's hard.
Yeah.
And He's placed people to surround us, to support us. What do you need me to do? Okay. And He's called us to be there on purpose. He has called us to find our place, understand where our place of safety is, but intentionally move into the Shephelah, into the place where we're encountering that pagan culture, willingly knowing where we need to call on for support and for help. And so we're going to continue to talk a little bit about this and the different things going on here. Come and join us.